distinguished judges, professors, and my beloved fellow students, good morning. I'm Huang Ruobin, a second-year graduate student from MUS, majoring in vocal performance under Professor Shi Jie. Well, today I'm going to talk about the myth of Orpheus in opera history. During the more than 400 years of opera history, I found that there is a story that seems to have magical power, and that is the myth of Orpheus. So starting from the first surviving opera in the early 17th century to the 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, and until now, composers have written countless operas with Orpheus as the theme. I can't help but wonder, why is the myth of Orpheus so attractive to opera composers? To answer these questions, perhaps we should start with understanding Orpheus. So, Orpheus is a hero, a poet, a musician in Greek myth. Of course, he's best known as a musician, and his music can move the birds, the bees, even the stone and the trees. Well, the most famous story about him is the story of him and his wife. Because of its oral tradition, the myth does not have an original text. So we can only know that the main source of later Orpheus myth is by Ovid. This is a story about music, love, and loss with dramatic elements. The story goes like that, but it's constantly being rewritten, which is amazing. Well, I would like to take example of movie. For example, Titanic, right? The famous movie. Just imagine Titanic being remade 60 times. Amazing. So, how did the myth of Orpheus travel through the 400-year history of opera? Now I select 4 classic operas from different times for analysis and comparison. I want to try to explore the connection between these 4 operas and the times in which they were written, and what are the connection and difference among 4 operas. At the same time, it may also have some inspiration for current opera production. Well, first let's sort it out according to the timeline. I list all the elements of all the libretto and the music, and then looked for the connection among them. Now, starting from Monteverdi's L'Orfeo, it was the time when opera was just born. A circle called Camerata de Bardi tried to revive ancient Greek musical drama and use music as the driving force for drama. So the first opera definitely was born. At the same time, some early opera paradigm were established. At the same time, this myth became known to more people because of the popular mythology books. Well, I found that L'Orfeo obviously follows the Camerata's intention to revive ancient Greek drama, which is reflected in the libretto by directly turning the original myth into the libretto suitable for singing. In music, remember, with the goal of music promoting the plot, vocal style has been developed and the orchestra expressive power has been enhanced. At the same time, it also follows the paradigm of early opera with prologue, music. The design of music is like a poem. The music tells the story. Next, let's get into Gluck's opera. In the first half of the 18th century, the development of opera gradually deviated from original intentions. And there was a desire to reorganize the form of opera. At the same time, Through educations, myths are passed on. Also, it left serious literature and found a new place in satirical play. So for operatic reform, it is to simplify the libretto, the plot, and the roles, while emphasizing the educational role of the plot of opera. They emphasize love, amore, besides Eurydice's fate. And an important sign of opera deviating from its original intention is when singers use too many colorature to show off their singing skills. In order to weaken the dominant position of vocal music in the opera, Gluck canceled the capo area and removed ornaments and made the music just simple and clean. Also, he used an orchestra to accompany the recitativo and focused on the effects of orchestra and recorded every note of the orchestra in notation. And how about Offenbach's Orpheus in the Underworld? This time, art to become increasingly subjective. Lots of different opera styles emerged. And at the same time, librettists began to create more own libretto. I mean, the libretto of serious opera followed the myth. So creating comedy opera libretto is more fulfilling for them. About the situation of Orpheus during this time in the literature, writers began paying more attention to Eurydice perspective. Personality are fully reflected in the libretto, which is departure and the mockery of the myth. All roles show the desire and greed of human nature. The only order is public opinion, was a bit satire on the government of that time. I mean, the real brilliant. As the only comic opera among the full operas, the music is of course light and enjoyable. This is an irony, because it's actually a tragedy. But that Eurydice was not rescued, and the music is so happy. In addition, Offenbach twice used Gluck's famous aria, Che farò senza Euridice, which means how should I live without Eurydice? The theme is playful epic. Now let's talk about Alcoy's Eurydice that has been staged in recent years. Modern opera is seeking innovation and marked by its diversity of styles and forms. But actually, modern operas lacks the audience and even modern music, I think. To write a popular modern opera, perhaps it needs to remain deeply rooted in the traditions and to understand what people are concerned about now. And the myth has returned to tragedy in modern times. The remain deeply rooted in traditions, but this time it has turned the perspective to Eurydice. Her death is like her rebirth in underworld, and she finished self-awareness and self-growth. And there were two very interesting triangles in the opera. One is Orpheus between Eurydice and the music, to Eurydice between Orpheus and her past father. Eurydice had her own choice now. In terms of music, it indeed looking for innovation. Alcoy used some new sounds, such as setting two Orpheus. The baritone shows his human side, the countertenor shows his god side, and also used new percussion instruments. Now let's use a mind map to do a simple review. feel, built a general structure for early operas and show the gradually maturing creative techniques of the early Baroque period. Orpheus and Eurydice reformed the shortcoming of traditional Italian opera and re-emphasized the relationship between music and drama. Orpheus in Underworld emphasized individuality and subverted the myth. Modern Eurydice showed the contemporary pursuit of self-growth. Well, I believe opera is valuable because it can capture the soul of its time. It was the soul of the time that gave Orpheus new life. But at the same time, there is something that remains unchanged. Those things have always attracted opera composers. The power of music and the discussion of love and the loss. Even in Orpheus in Underworld, there seems to be no love and no care about loss. In fact, itself is a discussion of them. This can also inspire today's opera productions, I think. Like I mentioned earlier, people these days tend to listen to the past work, which means classic operas are constantly on the stage. So directors and opera singers are always on the lookout for fresh ideas to bring new life into these classics. But what I've learned from this research is that when you are refreshing these timeless things, you've got to preserve their fundamental core. At last, I'd like to say that it's just the beginning of my exploration into Orphean operas. More like an introduction. There's still plenty of room for further research, like comparing and analyzing score, stage, and the same version of the same fragment in different times. And I hope to continue and turn it into a series of research projects that can make a meaningful contribution. I wish. Meanwhile, advertisement time. Here, this is my own podcast about classical music with content that's more relatable to general public. And in future, I will include the content related to Orpheus. So if you are interested, you could search 蔓延书林 on 小宇宙 app and Apple Podcasts and Himalaya. And thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you for the presentation. We all know there are so many the operas with the same topic, Orpheus, and but I was surprised to see in so many of them. So I think you did a good work on research, with all the findings. I just have some comments on. I think you are very. I think it's important you pointed out why this story attracted the composers and they composed the opera for this story through different historical periods. And also, I think you pointed out that's the love and the loss. So I think this is really, it's like you're writing a play or writing a story. So usually there are a few very, very important, the prototypes. I think you might want to focus on this, to explore it more, and then then with this kind of prototype, so then you can relate it to the four operas you were discussing, and relate it to the prototype, and how each one is to in different period of music history, right? And how they reflected the characteristic of the musical style in that period and related to the story. So I think that might make this your research more meaningful.
Thank you for your advice.
I find it interesting you mentioned some common long-lasting themes underlying this opera, such as love and loss, right? But this made me wondering why not something like thunder, victory, courage, right? So if you can provide me some data, that would be nice.
Thank you so much.